Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Liz Skrobish, and I did have to practice her name a little bit. She's the executive director for Ocean State Animal Coalition, and it's her first time on the show, and it's a pleasure having you on the show, so welcome.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Let's start off with a sort of a definition for those that don't know. Ocean State Animal Coalition, what is it?
The Ocean State Animal Coalition is an organization of organizations representing shelters, veterinarians, rescue organizations, and animal control officers, all of which came together initially to address the question of pet overpopulation in the state of Rhode Island.
And it just kind of makes sense to sort of create a think tank, so to speak, like that, where you can bounce different ideas of people that kind of have related fields and kind of tackle an issue that's becoming sort of a bigger issue every day, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's a big issue nationwide, and individually, it's an issue for every state. In Rhode Island, it wasn't so much about creating a think tank so much as it was about coming together to create the Rhode Island Community Spay-Neuter Clinic, which is a high-volume clinic designed to spay and neuter all the cats and dogs we possibly can as a way of ultimately bringing down the population, potentially going into shelters.
Why do people, how did it get this way? Why does it get this way? People adopt pets or buy pets from pet stores, unfortunately, and then don't realize that they're doing themselves, the animal community, a disservice by not spaying or neutering?
That's certainly part of it. I think for many years there was a question about whether it could be affordable or accessible. Those are two main obstacles for many people. I think for the most part, those who can afford to spay or neuter their animals and those who understand the importance of it are doing it. But there's a tremendous population, and those are people who love their pets very much, who either don't understand the importance of it or until now didn't have a way that they could get it done or a place to get it done. And from our standpoint, it's not just about overpopulation, but it's also the right thing for the animal.
Right.
Keeps a healthier animal.
Right. And a healthier society and less stress on all the shelters that are around. We talk so much off the air about the struggles that they're going through now with the influx that they're getting. And if only more people did spay and neuter, that the problem certainly wouldn't be alleviated, but it's about taking baby steps, isn't it?
It is. It's about chipping away at the problem, because it's important to remember that in shelters, euthanasia, for example, is something that affects, of course, the animal, but not only the animal. It's also the staff who care for those animals and the veterinarians who have the unthinkable job, the unthinkable task of actually having to do that. In Rhode Island, over 15,000 animals a year go into shelters year after year, and close to 20% of those are euthanized. And from our standpoint, that number is too high.
Yeah.
We'd like to bring it down.
Way too high. It's funny, as a kid, when you ask a kid what they want to be when they grow up, if they love animals, they want to maybe be a veterinarian, but they don't think about the tough things that have to be done, and so many animals that unfortunately may not be able to be saved, and they don't think about that. And how can you, as a human being who love animals, how do you not get attached, or how are you not emotional when you're working with them when sometimes these kind of things have to happen?
Well, it is built into the field. The animal welfare field has tremendous opportunity for reward and satisfaction, and there's inevitable heartbreak that comes with it.
Yeah. Is there any way to have no heartbreak and just all the reward and satisfaction? Because that's what I'm looking for. Not possible.
Well, if I can find it, I'll be happy to share it with you, but I don't have it yet.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing this for?
Personally, I became involved in animal welfare in Rhode Island just over 10 years ago when I was involved with a group called Paws Watch, which is a feral cat organization practicing trap, neuter, return. And through that, I became involved in the creation of the Ocean State Animal Coalition, which, as I said, is shelters, rescue groups, veterinarians, and animal control
How do you
officers.
get that started? Do you just approach certain organizations and sort of almost say, hey, I have an idea, what do you think? Is it just that simple?
It's not.
Okay.
And interestingly, we were the beneficiaries, all of us were the beneficiaries of some support from the Rhode Island Foundation in Providence. That organization actually gathered all of us together because we had all been grant recipients for a long time, putting money into spay-neuter. And the foundation thought perhaps there could be a broader approach, a bigger approach on a statewide basis if we all work together. They brought us to the table, we agreed to do it, and then we took off from there.
What is the feral cat situation like?
Specifically in Rhode Island, the community cat or free-roaming cat population is estimated to be somewhere in the 60,000 to 90,000 range. We sort of targeted at about 75,000. It's a problem that exists everywhere. I suppose it's only a problem if it's seen that way. I mean,
Yeah.
the cats are outside. There are fewer and fewer ferals and more abandoned and stray tame cats turning up as well outside.
It's terrible.
So it's a problem that exists everywhere.
Now, your spay and neuter program, does that include feral?
Absolutely,
Okay.
part of our
That's
mission.
important, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's a very big part of our mission. At the Rhode Island Community Spay Neuter Clinic in Warwick, because it's a high volume clinic, we're able to accommodate, say, up to 60 surgeries a day. Many of those on any given day will be feral cats. That's part of our mission. Feral cats and pit bulls, for example, are the animals most frequently euthanized in shelters. So it's our mission to make sure that we cut that reproduction rate by spaying and neutering as many as we can get hold of.
Do you have staff that just kind of go out and find them? Is that how it works?
For feral cats?
Yeah.
Mostly it's volunteer organizations. It could be Paws Watch, it could be
Right.
another organization in the state. The cats are trapped, they're brought in for surgery and given vaccinations and health check, and then once they've been post-op, they're put back in the population.
And can you actually see results at this point as far as a diminishing population?
Of shelter intake or of feral cats?
Just feral cats in general, since you started doing the spay
in
and neutering?
the answer is in certain areas. It takes really a targeted spay-neuter program. There has to be a concerted effort, usually in a certain geographic range, to start to see that result. But there are certainly pockets where that's happened, yes.
What is the biggest struggle for you, aside from things like funding, which we'll get into in a little bit, but what is the biggest concern for you as far as what you do, as far as population in general, maybe people's uneducation or misunderstanding of pet ownership or something like that?
That's a very good question, and you used a key word there, which is education. We knew as an organization coming together that we really needed a two-pronged approach to make improvements in animal welfare. We're there to improve the lives and well-being of animals in the state. Our first mission was to open the Rhode Island Community Spay-Neuter Clinic and make sure that there was subsidized spay-neuter available and that it was accessible. We even have a transport van that goes around the state and picks up cats and dogs from shelters or from private pet owners who can't otherwise get their pets to us. So now that that has been open 4 years and we've completed 30,000 surgeries and going.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. The clinic staff is amazing and doing a tremendous job every day. Our next focus now is a program we call Educate Humane. Our mission now is to educate the next generation of pet owners, because otherwise we're just pushing sand against the tide. We have to start to educate children very young, ages 3, 4, and 5, and then on up, about pet responsibility, picking a pet, and of course spay-neuter.
Do you, is there a lot of advocating of adopting pets as opposed to purchasing them in a pet store or from a breeder? Or do you discourage that?
Obviously, we are fans of that.
Right.
Nobody in our organization has specifically taken up that mission, but keeping in mind that some of our members are shelters, it's obviously very important to them
Right.
to see their animals adopted, and we always promote adoption over purchase, always.
And obviously, we like the pet stores that will sell the products, food and treats and toys and stuff like that. And they do have kennels, a lot of the pet stores, but it's not for selling pets, it's for allowing local area shelters
Yes.
to set up a day and create an adoption day. That seems to
Exactly.
be the best method, the best way to go.
Well, it's certainly one way to get animals seen. People do come into shelters, but it's also very possible that just opportunistically, as they're out buying pet supplies, they might fall in love with another pet right there.
Right. And when you go into shelters, and unfortunately, a family may not be either equipped or willing to maybe adopt an older pet, and the shelters are loaded with them, or with a particular breed, like you said, maybe it's a full shelter of pit bulls or a lot of them, unfortunately, and that creates a stereotype, doesn't it?
It does a bit, because they're such wonderful dogs, and in terms of older pets, whether they're dogs or they're cats, they make wonderful, wonderful pets. And I think somehow they're always a little bit more grateful.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, maybe even a little bit more docile. If you, are a couch potato yourself, you want someone to just kind of plop down on your lap and maybe not necessarily have a puppy running around all the time, right?
Well, puppies and kittens are very high energy and they require a lot of work.
High
And the truth
maintenance,
is
yeah.
that when you get an older animal, you already know that animal's personality, and there are no surprises to come.
Now, when you talk about this next generation and educating them, how young are we talking? Are we talking about getting into middle school? And because kids want pets, they start asking mom and dad, and then mom or dad decide, well, all right, so what do we do? What's the first thing?
Well, we have started a program, as I said, called Educate Humane. We've partnered, fortunately, with one of the top humane educators in the country, Jane Deming, who happens to be right in the Warwick area where we are. And through some fabulous grant support from the ASPCA, HSUS, and the Baker Trust, we've been able to create programs that she's actually created, and she is taking all over the state. And we start with kids as young as 3. We teach them about picking a pet and about having a pet at home and what that means and what pet responsibility means. And then as kids are a little bit older, say 4th grade level, we are talking to them about spay-neuter, right up on into high school where we're talking about careers with animals.
I'm not expecting you to know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. What causes somebody to just decide that if they don't want the cat anymore, well, it'll just survive on its own outside as we move away? Or abandonment just baffles me and quite frankly hurts. What's going through somebody's mind?
I think that's something that baffles all of us, and I think there can be a number of reasons behind it. One may be just a lack of options, as in...
Financial, you mean?
Well, financial, but also perhaps you have a pet owner who's tried to call a shelter and surrender an animal, but either the shelter is full or they simply can't afford a fee that might be attached to that. That's certainly one possibility. Another is just that animals are valued differently by different cultures and by different people. And there does tend to be a myth, for example, specifically concerning cats, that they can simply fend for themselves or survive on their own. And the truth is that may very well not be the case. But I don't think there's any one answer to that question, and there's certainly no short answer to it.
But, as animal lovers, we, find it appalling, and you just wonder what's going through somebody's mind. And I understand that, there can be financial considerations or a number of reasons, landlord issues, but you have to, why not try to use every option available to try to at least get the cat or whatever pet to a suitable home, replacement home, right?
I think some people do try.
Oh,
I
I
can't
know.
speak to all of them. I think sometimes they do try. Sometimes it's successful and sometimes not.
Another thing that was brought into light was the last Olympics in Russia, where we heard about the Sochi situation and I know Eastern Europe, and there are a lot of places, South America, where there's a lot of, I guess, wild dogs. We've been talking about feral cats, but there are some countries where they're dealing with the dog situation too, right? And I would imagine that's even more difficult to deal with.
Well, in New England, for example, we don't have stray dogs running around. We
Right.
don't have packs of dogs. And yet, in other parts of the U.S., there are more stray dogs still.
Is it because there's a lot more open area and space where they can
Not
live on their own?
Not necessarily. I think that, at least in the Northeast, there have been spay-neuter programs and more educational programs for a longer period of time, and or the Northeast perhaps has more resources. But in various parts of the South and Southwest, those resources don't exist, or that education hasn't existed for as long, and there do tend to be more stray dogs. Their shelters are always overcrowded and their euthanasia rates are higher.
We're going to take a break and come back. I want you to give out the website for people to learn and more, and then we'll come back for another segment. What's the website?
Absolutely. It's www.osac.org.
All right, we'll put a graphic up on the screen too. Liz Skrobish, I said it right.
You did.
The executive director for the Ocean State Animal Coalition. We'll take a break and come back. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Liz Skrobish. She's the executive director of the Ocean State Animal Coalition. A lot more to get to. We gave out the website a moment ago. What is on the website for people to go and see, by the way?
a lot of information on the website. First and foremost, we have an upcoming fundraiser in September in Mesquamaket called It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere. So we'd love for people to attend, and they can find more information about that on the website.
It's at the Windjammer. It's one of my favorite places.
It's at the Windjammer, that's right. But additionally, we have a listing of all of our coalition members, so anybody who's interested in learning more about the various organizations who are our members can certainly find them there. And we have not only listings of national and local resources, but also a complete listing of all the educational classes that are available and that we can come to teach.
Now, the name Ocean State Animal Coalition, for what it is, it may be a little misleading only in the sense that the amount of clients that you have that come from surrounding states, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and the like, there's a lot of them, isn't there? About 130 or so. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure, sure. The Ocean State Animal Coalition owns the Rhode Island Community Spay-Neuter Clinic. So the coalition itself is sort of equivalent to a parent company, for lack of a better description.
I think of it as like a United Way, and it kind of offshoots out to other organizations, in a way.
In a way, it's basically we have the coalition, and then under that is the Rhode Island Community Spay-Neuter Clinic. And that clinic accepts not only private patients and those who make appointments, but also partners with over 130 different shelters and rescue organizations from Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island who bring their animals to us, or from whom we pick up animals in our transport van to come in for surgery.
And your place is like the closest to most of these clients, even for Connecticut, Massachusetts. Your spay-neuter facility is the closest for them, isn't it?
It is. Because we're a dedicated spay-neuter facility, we're not a full-service veterinary hospital, so all we do is spay, neuter, and vaccinate all day long, up to 60 a day, 5 days a week.
When you say clients, you're talking about other, like municipal animal control locations, things like that. Yeah.
Sometimes, yes, and sometimes they're private rescue organizations, either focused on cats or specific breeds of dogs. Again, there's a full listing even on the clinic's website, which can be linked from osac.org.
Now, you came from the business world of like Wall Street, correct?
Yes.
What is it like? Is it a daunting task to move into the world of nonprofit? Is it like sort of a night and day sort of a thing for you?
Well, I didn't move into it, I slid into it.
Did you really?
Yes, and so because it was a gradual move, I just found a different satisfaction there, There is something absolutely to gain from getting up in the morning and being able to know you've contributed something.
But it's one thing to be involved in a nonprofit, but something that you have an extreme passion for, in our case, being animal lovers, that certainly made it even that much more gratifying, I would imagine, right?
Absolutely. It never occurred to me when I moved to Rhode Island that I would actually be doing this. It was not part of the plan.
Now, you've been doing this during the recession period, and Rhode Island, I would imagine, was hit pretty hard as far as that goes. What is it like to try to do funding and fundraisers and write grants and things of that sort when you're in an economy the way it was? I'm assuming we're coming out of it now, right?
Absolutely it is. It's critical for us. Our funding at the very beginning was courtesy of the Rhode Island Foundation, and we could not have gotten this off the ground without them. They really did spearhead that from a financial perspective, and then it was ours to keep afloat. The recession has certainly taken its toll on a lot of people, including many, many pet owners, and that goes back to what you said before about abandonment. It is sometimes the reason that people have not gotten their dogs and cats spayed or neutered. It's simply been a financial crunch. We're very proud of the fact that as we run a subsidized clinic, a low-cost clinic, we've never said no to anybody who has called, regardless of their financial situation. We work very, very hard with people to try to make sure that everybody who wants to spay or neuter a pet has the opportunity to do that.
What does it usually cost for a basic spay or neuter for a cat or a dog? And are there differences in price depending on the animal? And
Absolutely.
Like that,
Our cat surgeries are $75.
And that seems to be standard, right?
It is among spay-neuter clinics, not necessarily among full-service veterinarians.
Okay.
Because their business models are different,
Right.
Typically their prices would be higher. And then as far as dogs are concerned, it's all based on weight or size, and the prices start at about $200 and go up from there.
Since we're talking about funding and money in general, one of the things you mentioned was it's great to have the passion to want to do what you do and you love, whether it be animal rescue, anything along those lines. But you also have to have the organization, the funding, the money to be able to, the staff to be able to pull it off. And that's where your business background comes in handy, because all the passion in the world won't necessarily get accomplished what you really want to.
Right. Passion will only get you so far. After that, it's nuts and bolts. It's very true. It's absolutely true. And OSAC is committed to keeping the Rhode Island Community Spay-Neuter Clinic healthy as a clinic, so that it can go on for years and years, or as long as needed anyway, until we've spayed or neutered everything we can get our hands on,
Absolutely.
which is really critically important. And funding is a large part of that, whether it's fundraising or grant writing or straight donations from some of our clients.
So we talked about that, the fundraising part, and another very, very important aspect of it, and we mentioned it generically, education, but get a little bit more specific as far as educating the public on trying to help solve the problems that you're dealing with.
I think when the public actually sits back and learns how many animals go into shelters and what the impact of that is, euthanasia is part of it, but it actually affects everybody overall, even from a tax perspective. Your tax dollars and mine potentially are going to euthanize animals or to pay staff to do that, and we don't want to be doing that. I know I don't want to be doing that. And there is a ripple effect, and just sort of, if you think about a way to create a more humane community, the way there, in part at least, is to take care of the animals that we now have, not allow more to be born or bred, and to try to reduce those numbers going into shelters, to create a healthier environment and a more humane community, simply.
Unfortunately, there are people that their whole mindset is breeding, because they look at it as a business, financial gain from doing it, and you're certainly not doing the animals any favors. You're treating them like a commodity instead of what we treat our pets like, and that's members of the family, right?
Well, there are legitimate breeders, and then there is another group of breeders, and those would be the less legitimate ones, I'll call them.
Much more or less.
And I think that there's probably a place somewhere for legitimate breeders, even if we personally would promote adoption from shelters.
Well, it's only because they're so overfilled that we want to get that, legitimate breeders when the population goes down a little bit. How about that? That's my dream.
I buy that.
Okay,
That's
good.
fair.
But so they're there. So education, that's important, and it starts, with someone one day deciding they want to have a pet for themselves, but doing a lot of research, investigating, and learning what's appropriate for them, because obviously what's appropriate for one person is not for another. One's in an apartment, one's in a house, one has a family, one doesn't, and there's a pet for everybody, isn't there?
Well, I'd like to think that there is. I mean, that's part of the class work that we do for elementary school children, is to get them thinking about just that. It sort of develops their critical thinking skills at the same time that they're learning about kindness and empathy and pet responsibility. They're learning to make decisions about what type of pet might be best in what type of home, and also what will this pet need on an ongoing basis beyond just food and water. It's your responsibility, and potentially, hopefully, it's a very long-term one.
Yeah, you have them thinking about the potential ramifications and not just what they want right now. I want to have a big dog. Well,
Right.
that's a daunting task for some people. We can't talk enough about the events coming up, because that's a big way to raise money for you. So the September fundraiser, and also on the website, there'll be a listing of all the events that you'll have coming
Absolutely.
up. What do you have after that, by the way?
Well, I can't announce it yet, because we're
Ooh.
going to do a big announcement at the September event.
Okay, so that'll be the breaking news at that event.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. And we actually just held an event last month, which was specifically to raise money for our Spay It Forward Fund, which exists at the clinic to help people who can't otherwise afford to spay or neuter their animals. So we always have something ongoing.
Right. And if this show happens to be airing after that particular September event, going to the website, there'll be a full listing of all the other events. Are you always looking for volunteers too?
We occasionally have volunteers at the spay-neuter clinic, not so much at the coalition itself, but at the spay-neuter clinic. They may be needed, or they may be needed just to help out at events. So anybody who's interested in volunteering is certainly welcome to give us a call.
All right. Let's take one more break and come right back. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. So that is our show for today. I want to thank very much Liz Skrobish for stopping in. She's the executive director of the Ocean State Animal Coalition. You want to learn more about it, the website one more time is?
The website is www.osac.org.
And one other thing I wanted to mention that we mentioned off the air was if you can't have a pet, maybe, like you said, maybe go to a local shelter and just spend time with them, maybe walk them, maybe make a donation there too. Anything you can to help the little guys
Anything
and
you
girls.
can do to support would be helpful.
Thank
and
you very
welcome.
much for being on the show
Thank
today.
you so much.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of For the Record. You can see this show and many others on our YouTube sites. Till next time, I'm Sean Murphy. Take care.